I'm Bruce Ross. I grew up right here in Park Hill. I spent the first 14 years in town, and my mother got the opportunity to become the curator of the Murrell Home in 1959. We grew up out on what is now Mud Valley Road, or now 4th Street, the old Mud Valley Road. And we grew up at what's also the place called the Lamer Addition. We had 50 acres there. We had a small farm. We had horses and cattle and chickens, and we had a 5-acre cornfield, an orchard. Some of the old trees from the orchard are still there. I couldn't think of it growing up anywhere else except until I moved here. Oh wow. I think it was probably the best place in the world to grow up. I mean, I got to help my mother out. I learned a lot of the history of our people.
Did anyone in your house speak Cherokee?
My dad and his sisters. When I was growing up in Tahlequah, we'd come out. My aunt was the curator of this home at that time. My dad's older sister, Jen. All of my dad's brothers and sisters could speak Cherokee. Most of them didn't because they weren't living in the Indian community that much. But I'd love to come out with my dad when they would come out here and they'd talk Cherokee. Dad was one of 9 kids. He was the 8th of 9 kids. And whenever the sisters and my dad would get together, it was always in Cherokee. But I hung around because I wanted to learn. Well, yeah, as long as I knew how to keep quiet while they're talking, just like a child's supposed to. My parents were elderly when I was born. So I grew up with their friends, which were older, naturally. And I'm glad I did. I mean, I kind of missed doing some of the things that the other kids were doing, but I also enjoyed listening to the stories that they were telling too of their days when they were younger. Most of the boys my age, that was our #1 love, was baseball. And of course in school we got to playing marbles and loved to play marbles. And we'd be spinning tops, which people never even heard of tops anymore. We did a little bit of everything. I mean, they're just boys being boys, just whatever we could find to do. I had a favorite stick horse.
Tell me about that.
Yeah, we didn't have horses that we rode that much when we were real young, so we made our own stick horses. Mine was, of course, named Trigger after Roy Rogers' horse. People laugh at this, but some of our favorite toys were rocks. We'd throw them at each other. And neighborhood kids out in the, my closest neighbor when I moved out here was, probably about 300 yards away. And we'd chunk rocks at each other. With this creek right behind us here, oh my God, going out there spending the entire day catching crawdads, or you get tired of doing that, you go downstream a couple hundred yards, there's a big rock and a big hole there, we'd go swimming down there, skinny dipping if you will. Whatever, we just grew up out in the country. Just a great way to grow up. I think when I was like 6 or 7, I remember my brother gave me a gun and pistol set. And I loved it. I loved it, cap gun. My main job was milking, taking care of the cattle, and cleaning the house every Saturday when Mother and Dad would take off and go to the sale barn. It was my job to stay home and clean that house. I'm talking about washing the baseboards, and you could only use one item. You could only use spick and span. But I had to go get my own switches. Mother would use a switch on me.
So she would make you go pick out your switch?
Oh, absolutely. No doubt about it.
Now, did she ever send you after another one because you didn't get the right
Oh,
one?
yeah. She only had to do that once because I knew better. I knew to get the right one the first time because it was going to be worse only if I didn't. When I was a kid, I remember taking an old wagon that my dad found somewhere, found it alongside the road. It was so bent up, it wasn't funny. And he took it home, and I'd lay it on the side, and the front 2 wheels would bend. So I kicked it up, and it was like being in a car, and that was my steering wheel. We couldn't afford a basketball goal, so my dad bent a piece of pipe in a circular manner and hung it up on the outside of the barn. That was my basketball goal. The only problem with having it up there on the side of the barn, it was kind of hard to play with all the cows running around in there and you stepping in everything. We also made our whips. There was a weed, I can't remember the name of it. You peel it down like you would a banana, and inside, like where the banana is, was a gooey stick. You'd cut that stick off, and this thing would sometimes be 3.5, 4 foot long. And you'd peel strip the peeling down, 4 different ones, and then you'd braid it back up to the tip and tie a knot in there, and that would be a whip. And it would actually sting you. Most of the time as kids, we didn't have any money. I mean, it was a rare treat to get a quarter to go town and go to the movie. Dad would have to wait on me. Instead of driving all the way back out to the house and coming back in an hour and a half later to pick me up, he'd just stay in town. And I loved that because I loved it when I went to the movies a lot of times not to watch the movie. I went to the movie to hear Dad and the guy that ran the theater talk about their days playing baseball, because they played baseball together. I lived over there, but during the summer months, I'd live upstairs. The third bedroom upstairs, over the one that's over the dining room. I could crawl out the window or out on the roof and run all the way around the rooftop and everything. It was great, learning little bits of history and put it all together. People don't realize it, but above the kitchen, there's another room. It's closed off to the public. On the far side over there, you'll see some set of stairs that goes up to a door. It's a winding staircase. It curves and comes right back out to the room above there. That was the slave quarters. And I used to carry water into the house. We didn't get water in the house until I was like 9. Got electricity the year before. Our house was up on a little knoll, and we had down by the creek, we had a well, had a pump. And we'd go down there and pump the water up. I used to tell people, I said, it'd take me 2 trips to get a bucket of water to the house. And they said, what, you spill it all? I said, no, I wasn't strong enough to carry a full bucket of water.
Now, did y'all have a radio or anything like that?
Yeah, and I beat on it a many a time. We listened to old stories like Behind the Green Door, Fibber McGee and Molly, Amos and Andy, oh gosh, Lone Ranger. And of course, Dad always loved to listen to the prize fights. I remember listening to Joe Louis on the radio, you know, and Joe Louis went out in 1948. When we finally got a television, 1955, I was 10 years old. And oh my God, it changed the world. I was able to see what was going on. I remember sitting out in the front yard with my mother and dad, and I'd run around chasing, and you don't see I saw 2 of them last night. Lightning bugs. You don't see very many anymore. June bugs. You don't see very many June bugs. We used to take a little thread and tie it on their legs and just watch them fly around with it. It'd have to be a light thread, you know, but I mean, still, you'd hold one end, it was like watching them fly around on the end of that thing. The beautiful thing about living then versus today is parents didn't worry about us. Respect for your elders. I definitely learned that. I think it's just part of our culture that we respect our elders, but not everybody's raised that way today.